Good morning and welcome back to the channel where we're reading the book of Judges. Before we begin the next chapter, Father, as I read and receive your word, may it deeply be rooted in me, so when difficulty comes, it will be your word that encourages and strengthens me. Amen. Chapter 20. Israel's war with Benjamin. Then all the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba and from the land of Gilead came together in one large assembly and stood in the presence of the Lord at Mizpah. The leaders of all the people and all the tribes of Israel, 400,000 warriors armed with swords, took their position in the assembly of the people of God. Word soon reached the land of Benjamin that the other tribes had gone up to Mizpah. The Israelites then asked how this terrible crime had happened. The Levite, the husband of the woman who had been murdered, said, "My concubine and I came to Gibeah, a town in the land of Benjamin, to spend the night." Excuse me. That night, some of the leaders of Gibeah surrounded the house, planning to kill me and then rape my concubine until she was done. So I cut her body into 12 pieces and sent the pieces throughout the land of Israel. For these men had committed this terrible and shameful crime. Now then, the entire community of Israel must decide what should be done about this. And all the people stood up together and replied, Not one of us will return home. Instead, we will draw lots to decide who will attack Gibeah. 1/10 of the men from each tribe will be chosen to supply the warriors with food, and the rest of us will take revenge on Gibeah for this shameful thing they have done in Israel. So all the Israelites were united, and they gathered together to attack the town. The Israelites sent messengers to the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What a terrible thing has been done among you. Give up these evil men from Gibeah, so we can execute them and purge Israel of this evil." But the people of Benjamin would not listen. Instead, they came from their towns and gathered at Gibeah to fight the Israelites. 26,000 of their warriors armed with swords arrived in Gibeah to join the 700 warriors who lived there. 700 of Benjamin's warriors were left-handed, each of whom could sling a rock and hit a target within a hair's breadth without missing. Israel had 400,000 warriors armed with swords, not counting Benjamin's warriors. Before the battle, the Israelites went to Bethel and asked God which tribe should lead the attack against the people of Benjamin. The Lord answered, "Judah is to go first." So the Israelites left early in the next morning and camped near Gibeah. Then they advanced toward Gibeah to attack the men of Benjamin. But Benjamin's warriors who were defending the town came out and killed 22,000 Israelites in the field that day. But the Israelites took courage and assembled at the same place they had fought the previous day, for they had gone up to Bethel and wept in the presence of the Lord until evening. Then they asked the Lord, "Shall we fight against our relatives from Benjamin again?" And the Lord said, "Go out and fight against them." So they went out to fight against the warriors of Benjamin. But the men of Benjamin killed another 18,000 Israelites, all of whom were experienced with the sword. Then all the Israelites went up to Bethel and wept in the presence of the Lord and fasted until evening. They also brought burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord, and the Israelites went up seeking direction from the Lord. In those days the Ark of the Covenant was in Bethel, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron, was the priest. The Israelites asked the Lord, "Should we fight against our relatives from Benjamin again, or should we stop?" The Lord said, "Go, tomorrow I will give you victory over them." So the Israelites set an ambush all around Gibeah. They went out on the third day and assembled in the same place as before. When the warriors of Benjamin came out to attack, they were drawn away from the town. And as they had done before, they began to kill the Israelites. About 30 Israelites died in the open fields along the roads leading to Bethel and Gibeah. Then the warriors of Benjamin shouted, "We're defeating them as we did in the first battle." But the Israelites had agreed in advance to run away so that the men of Benjamin would chase them along the roads and be drawn away from the town. When the main group of Israelite warriors reached Baal-Tamar, they turned and prepared to attack. Then the Israelites, hiding in ambush west of Gibeah, jumped up from where they were and advanced against Benjamin from behind. The fighting was so heavy that Benjamin didn't realize the impending disaster. So the Lord helped Israel defeat Benjamin, and that day the Israelites killed 25,100 of Benjamin's warriors, all of whom were experienced with a sword. Then the men of Benjamin saw that they were beaten. The Israelites had retreated from Benjamin's warriors in order to give those hiding in ambush more room to maneuver. Those who were hiding rushed in from all sides and killed everyone in the town. They sent up a large cloud of smoke from the town, which was a signal for the Israelites to turn and attack Benjamin's warriors. By that time, Benjamin's warriors had killed about 30 Israelites, and they shouted, "We're defeating them as we did in the first battle." But when the warriors of Benjamin looked behind them and saw the smoke rising in the sky from every part of the town, the Israelites turned and attacked. At this point, Benjamin's warriors realized disaster was near and became terrified. So they ran toward the wilderness, but the Israelites chased after them and killed them. The Israelites surrounded the men of Benjamin and were relentless in chasing them down, finally overtaking them east of Gibeah. 18,000 of Benjamin's greatest warriors died in that day's battle. Their survivors fled into the wilderness toward the rock of Rimmon, but Israel killed 5,000 of them along the road. They continued the chase until they had killed another 2,000 near Gittim. So the tribe of Benjamin lost 25,000 brave warriors that day, leaving only 600 men who escaped to the rock of Rimmon, where they lived for 4 months. Then the Israelites returned and slaughtered every living thing in all the towns, the people, the cattle, everything. They also burned down every town they came to. Chapter 21. Israel provides wives for Benjamin. The Israelites had vowed at Mizpah never to give their daughters in marriage to a man from the tribe of Benjamin. When the people went to Bethel and sat in the presence of God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly, "O Lord God of Israel," they cried out, "why has this happened? Now one of our tribes is missing. Early the next morning, the people built an altar and presented their burnt offerings and peace offerings on it. Then they said, "Was any tribe of Israel not represented when we held our council in the presence of the Lord at Mizpah?" At that time, they had taken a solemn oath in the Lord's presence, vowing that anyone who refused to come must die. The Israelites felt deep sadness for Benjamin and said, "Today we have lost one of the tribes from our family. It is nearly wiped out. How can we find wives for the few who remain, since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them our daughters in marriage?" So they asked, "Was anyone absent when we presented ourselves to the Lord at Mizpah?" And they discovered that no one from Jabes Gilead had attended. For after they counted all the people, no one from Jabes Gilead was present. So they sent 12,000 warriors to Jabesh Gilead with orders to kill everyone there, including women and children. "This is what you are to do," they said. "Completely destroy all the males and every woman who is not a virgin." Among the residents of Jabesh Gilead, they found 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and they brought them to the camp of Shiloh in the land of Canaan. The Israelites' assembly sent a peace delegation to the little remnant of Benjamin, who were living at the rock of Rimmon. Then the men of Benjamin returned to their homes, and the 400 women of Jabesh Gilead who were spared were given to them as wives. There were not enough women for all of them. The people felt sorry for Benjamin because the Lord had left this gap in the tribes of Israel. So the Israelite leaders asked, "How can we find wives for the few who remain, since all the women of the tribe of Benjamin are dead?" There must be heirs for the survivors so that the entire tribe of Israel will not be lost forever. But we cannot give them our own daughters in marriage because we have sworn with a solemn oath that anyone who does this will fall under God's curse. Then they thought of the annual festival the Lord held in Shiloh, between Lebanoth and Bethel, along the east side of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem. They told the men of Benjamin who still needed wives, "Go and hide in the vineyards. When the women of Shiloh come out for their dances, rush out from the vineyards, and each of you can take one of them home to be your wife. And then when their fathers and brothers come to us to protest, we will tell them, 'Please be understanding. Let them have your daughters, for we didn't find enough wives for them when we destroyed Jabesh Gilead. And you are not guilty of breaking the vow, since you did not give your daughters in marriage to them.'" So the men of Benjamin did as they were told. They kidnapped the women who took part in the celebration and carried them off to the land of their own inheritance. Then they rebuilt their towns and lived in them. So the assembly of Israel departed by tribes and families, and they returned to their own homes. In those days, Israel had no king, so the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. Okay. Well, that's the end of Judges. I didn't quite understand that last chapter. I'll have to reread it later. So I'm going to go back and read, like I always do, what Judges was all about. So the author is unknown. It took place around 11th century BC. The content is the book of Judges covers a period of several hundred years following the conquest of Canaan. During this time, the people were ruled by individual leaders called judges. Their task was primarily to expel their enemies from the land. Throughout this part of Israel's history, we see the repetition of a tragic cycle: rebellion against God, followed by the judgment of God, usually in the form of foreign invasion. The people of Israel would then cry to God for help, and he would send a judge to lead them back to the God's ways. Tragically, the people never seem to learn that rebellion against God is a sure road to disaster. The theme is the grim lesson of Judges is that the wages of sin is death. Romans 6:3. Sin takes many forms, from the sophisticated sins of kings to the barbaric events that close the book. But the net result is always the same. When people do as they please, chaos and destruction are the natural results. But God continues to save people from total destruction when they turn back to Him. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a blessed day. Tomorrow we begin the book of Ruth, which I'm anxious to read because I've read a lot of reference to that recently in another book I was reading. So I'm anxious to get into that one. So have a blessed day, and I'll read to you tomorrow. Bye.